Hi guys! Today I'm going to show you the easiest way to paint a donut and a waffle in watercolor style. The first thing is to insert the watercolor paper texture. Same as the last video, I used the watercolor paper texture from Kelvin at Drifter Studio. I just think this watercolor paper texture works the best and wanted to share it with you. I will put the link in the description. If you want to use some other watercolor paper texture, that's fine as well. Then I'm gonna use the brush, the Old Beach Under Artistic. But before we start this painting, I'm gonna adjust this brush a little bit. The brush with the default settings has a texture, which we don't need it here since we already have the paper texture, and is also translucent, which I don't want. I want it to have a solid color without any transparency. So tap on the brush and duplicate it. Go to grain, increase the scale a little bit, and drag the depth all the way to the max. Then go to taper, move the right node to the right a little bit, and maximize the opacity and pressure. Looks like the color is no longer translucent, but I also want to make the hard edge has some sort of watermarks like real watercolor. So tap to edit the brush again. Go to rendering. Increase the burnt edges to around 50%. And change the burnt edges mode to multiply. And now the brush looks good and has a natural watermarks and hard edges. Let's get started. I'm gonna paint the donut first. Pick a yellow-orange-ish color for the bun. Draw a circle. Make sure this round shape should not be a perfect circle. Leave a little hole in the middle. I want the middle hole a little bit bigger, so let's erase it to make it bigger. Use the brush we just made. I feel like the color is too orange, so adjust the color to make it a little bit more yellow. Then let's add some strawberry frosting. Add a new layer and check clipping mask. Then select the pink color. I want to show a little bit of the bun, so don't cover the whole thing. Erase some pink paints to show more bun. This pink looks a little bit too vibrant, which is not very common in real watercolor paintings. Make some adjustments here. You might have already known that when you paint real watercolor paintings, you mix the pigment with water, so the paint is diluted. And then watercolor paper absorbs some of the paint too, so when it dries, the watercolors look even lighter on the paper. That said, when we paint digital watercolor paintings, we should also avoid using vibrant colors, or at least the palette has a pastel appearance. Now the base layer looks pretty good. Add some shadows to the strawberry frosting. Add a new layer for that, and check clipping mask. And change the mode of this layer to multiply. Smooth out the hard edges. Now the rain shape looks flat, so add some drop shadow for the hole, like how we did it for the frosting shadow. Based on the shadow, you probably can tell that the light source is positioned above and to the left of the donut's top surface. All the other shadows would accommodate to that. Reduce the opacity of this layer. Next, I'm gonna add some texture to the frosting. Add a new layer, pick a white color, and use the brush Flicks under spray paints. Set the brush a smaller size and kind of go over this frosting, but don't overdo it. Reduce the opacity of this layer. Now the frosting does not look as flat. Here is the fun part. Add sprinkles. Add a new layer and use the new Old Beach brush that we made. I actually use the 4 different colors to draw short random lines for the sprinkles, but you can play around with it. It won't go wrong anyway. Then duplicate this layer for the shadow and move it to the right and down a little bit. Change the layer mode to multiply. It doesn't show as much, so let me adjust it a little bit more. Using the same method that we used for shadows before, add a new layer for the reflections. According to the top left lighting, I think the reflections should be up here and down here. And smooth out the edges. One tip here is that you probably don't want to smooth it too much or too evenly because the frosting itself is usually not perfectly even. So lower down the opacity of this layer. And then the last step, duplicate the bottom layer for the shadow. Smooth out the hard edges. You can't see much of the color yet since we haven't changed the color. Let's adjust the color to make it darker. And some final adjustments. Combine all the layers and the donut is done. Now let's paint a waffle. The process is very similar. Add a new layer and use the brush that we made again for this waffle. I'm gonna do a mini waffle here, so the shape is a square or circular and the tips of the grid extend outward. And drop the color in to fill it up. Add a new layer and pick a lighter yellow to highlight the edges and the grade. Smooth it out. Now I want to highlight the edges even more, so highlight it once again with a lighter color. Go through the edges and some of the grid. Add a new layer for the pockets. Choose a darker orange color. Oops, this color looks a little bit too dark, but it's okay, we can adjust it later. Think about the pockets. Some areas might be more cooked and some are less cooked. So that means they should not be painted in one solid color. It should have some sort of variations within one color tone. So I'm gonna paint part of the pockets with this brush and smudge it over to bring in color variations. Smooth out the color blocks, keep some hard edges, and smear the paints to form the pocket shapes. Adjust the color. Now I feel like the waffle color is too light. Let me add a new layer on top of the base layer and select clipping mask. Drop a darker color in and we've got a better looking waffle. After darkening the waffle, I think we need to highlight the grid and the edges even more. So follow the same procedure one more time. Lower down the opacity of this layer and highlight the grid itself one more time. Now duplicate the base layer and make it the shadow. Smooth out the edges and darken the color. Now it looks good. I want to add some shadows in the pockets. So create a new layer on top of the pocket layer. Use a darker color and draw some lines. Smooth out the color blocks and keep some of the hard edges. Adjust the opacity and we are done. The drawing process is pretty universal for painting any small objects. Try it out and let me know what you think. If you liked today's video, please hit the like button. If you want to see more videos in the future, don't forget to subscribe my channel. See you in the next one. Bye bye!